Welcome to the Munro Review, where it's all about connecting, sharing, and valuing the arts in the Central San Joaquin Valley. I'm Donald Munro. Today is January 25th, and we're going to be talking about the busy art scene in February. In just a few minutes, we're going to be chatting with artist Marcos Dorado, who has a new exhibition at the Fresno Art Museum. And later, we will get an update on Theater Vaughn 2, which is back on the Fresno theater scene with a new production of King Lear. But first, let's recap some of what I've been covering on MunroReview.com. January is always a busy month for Good Company Players, which opens not one but two productions within a few weeks of each other. First off was a new adaptation of Sense and Sensibility at the Second Space Theater. Kathleen McKinley, who's known for her powerful shows at Fresno State, directed this fun and insightful romp. I was impressed. Sense and Sensibility is based on the famous novel by Jane Austen, of course, who published the book in 1811. But this new adaptation by Kate Hamill is just a couple of years old. The Brooklyn-based Bedlam Theater Company premiered it in 2014, and it definitely has a contemporary vibe. Most of the stage furniture is on wheels to make it all that much easier to roll on and off stage. Actors change roles and genders and even species quickly and often, sometimes in a matter of seconds. Chunks of exposition that have been boiled down from Austen's prose, tossed out by various breathless characters at the audience like little narrative cherry bombs. And did I mention the Gossips, a group that tuts and whispers and spreads news faster than Facebook? This ain't your grandma's Jane Austen. The cast is strong, including our two leading Dashwood sisters. Jessica Knotts is a sturdy and affecting Eleanor, and Navi Jackson, as Marianne, is wonderful. Though their temperaments are very different, they aren't quite the polar opposites that they might at first appear, and they manage to teach each other a lesson or two. Other standouts include Julia Reimer as their mother, Terry Lewis as a pensive suitor with a secret, and Gigi Dickerson as the youngest Dashwood sister, Margaret. There were a couple of weaknesses for me. One comes from having actors play multiple characters. Sometimes it's difficult to track the changes. And the other is a tendency for the comic sensibility of the production to drift too far toward campiness. There are a few moments when it feels as if we're laughing at Jane Austen, not with her. But overall, this is a fun, sweet, lively, and happy show, and very well done. It makes all the sense in the world not to miss it. Good Company Players' other opening in January was Annie at Roger Rocker's Dinner Theater, and it continues through March 18th. What a delightful production. Our favorite red-headed orphan, who has one of those big voices you can only hope for in the song Tomorrow, is a joy. Literally, Annie is played by Joy Smith, and she more than holds her own among the experienced veterans in the GCP cast, including Lori Pisano as Grace Farrell, Julie Lucido as Miss Hannigan, and Nicholas Nunez as a memorable rooster. One of the keys to a great production of Annie is a strong chemistry between Annie and the grumpy Oliver Warbucks. He's the billionaire who falls under her cheerful spell. Eric Estep gives the best Warbucks performance I've seen from him, and it wasn't exactly my first time to experience him in the role. He and young Joy have a great father-daughter rapport. It's fun to see them just so happy on stage. Now, in a sad story, members and listeners of Valley Public Radio mourn the death of Miriam Stepanian, the longtime general manager of the station, who died on January 18th. She'd been at the station since 1980 and helped build it up into the highly regarded institution it is today. One of her great accomplishments was a new building for KVPR, which opened in 2016. Now let's meet our first guest, artist Marcos Dorado, whose new exhibition at the Fresno Art Museum is titled Immigrant Me. Welcome, Marcos.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I have followed your career for years.
Right.
You are such a hard and diligent worker. You're always doing new stuff. And you're also a really strong student. You are always studying and trying to learn more. Yeah,
I think it comes from having such a true love for the discipline of drawing. And so I'm always excited to discover new things, to expand it in different ways, to try different medium or different types of pencils or paper, what have you, and then always explore other artists and be in touch with them and network and communicate and learn. So
your show at the Fresno Art Museum, it features 20 works.
Correct.
These are all people you know.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Right.
And they are all immigrants.
Correct.
Tell us about that. What was your thought process?
Right. You know, I had a discussion with Michelle, the director, about a year ago, and from that was the seed for this exhibit, and the purpose of the exhibit is to promote the positive side of immigration. Certainly the negative gets a lot of airplay nowadays. There's a lot of certainly publicity about the negative side, and it serves to instill fear and even anger and pass laws that disfavor immigration. And certainly there are issues that are worrisome with immigration, but within all of that, there's also a lot of amazing things that immigrants do. Immigration adds to the fabric of our communities and our overall culture, and that does not get the spotlight as often. And so then I thought that it's for me as an artist, it's incumbent to focus on issues that help form our community or affect it in some way. And so art, after all, is a language, and so then I can use it to communicate my perspective. And in this case, my being an immigrant myself can speak firsthand of what it's like to be an immigrant, and then what it's like to be one that really strives to do something good for the community. And so then I was able to have, people come to my studio and pose, and they have just amazing stories, everything from German.
So one of them,
Yes.
you actually brought in
Right.
this drawing. Now, this isn't actually the drawing that's in the show.
Correct,
right?
correct.
But it's of one of your subjects. Tell me about him.
This drawing here is of Fabio Pertile, who was born in Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras. And so he came to the United States, first to Louisiana, and now he resides here in Fresno. So I actually met him at an art hop event. He was a server of hors d'oeuvres and wine and that sort of a thing. And the minute I saw him, I thought, wow, what a handsome face and great look. I would love to draw him. I didn't know him, but so then I got a sense about him, his spirit, and I thought, wow, he's a really, really cool guy. And so then I approached him about posing. And so this is probably the fourth portrait I do of him.
Oh, okay.
We have now become really good friends.
So when you just happen to see someone interesting looking,
Right.
sometimes it just kind of a light bulb goes off and says, I want to draw this person.
Exactly.
How much time does it take to do one of these portraits?
Right.
What's the average?
Sure. It depends upon the size and how much detail I'm going to include in the piece. This particular one, he posed probably for about 12 to 15 hours. So over a few sessions of about 3 hours.
And does he have to stay totally still during that? Pretty close.
At first, in the first sessions, yes, because I really need to nail down his, the perspective and, all these details. And then as the drawing becomes a little more settled and begins to take form, then the model can move around a little bit. And we're always talking, we always discuss, life. We solve word problems, when we're in our sessions.
You have a lot of interaction time.
Right.
So you actually really get to know these people, which also, I assume, helps in your final interpretation.
Exactly. It really gives me a lot of insight into who they are. And so really, my posing with a model becomes a very intimate process. Because we share so much, we'll end up talking about everything from our childhood to maybe unpleasant events that happen in our lives to glory, to divorce or marriage or love or breakup. And, we discuss so much because some models end up posing for the piece that I did of Fabio in the museum that's in the show. He posed, if I recall correctly, he posed about 30 hours. So in 30 hours of spending with someone, when all you're doing is staring at that person, right?
you really get to know.
Get to know that person because amazing discussions happen through that, and that's why we become such good friends. When we're stuck for so many hours together in my studio.
So you have studied extensively back in New York City.
Right.
You are a strong proponent for classical drawing.
Right.
Tell us just really briefly, what is classical drawing,
Right.
and why do you believe in it so strongly?
Yeah, first of all, it's my favorite. I appreciate all other forms of art. It's just that this is the type of art that I like to create. But, I love Pollock and I love, Rothko and everyone else, that created other types of work. But for me, classicism is I like it because it really goes, from my perspective, it really goes after identifying the person and really getting in touch with their beauty and doing my very best to represent that beauty that I see in a realistic way, so that if someone knows Fabio can look at that drawing and say, that's Fabio,
right.
Not necessarily a distorted interpretation of Fabio. There's nothing wrong with having a distorted interpretation. But for me, what I like to create is one that is as close as possible to his likeness.
Right.
And I'm just fascinated by that process.
So you are going to actually give us a little demonstration.
Sure. Right.
With a blank.
Yeah.
Do you want to get up? You brought in your pencils. We were talking earlier
Right.
about charcoal versus graphite.
Right.
What are you going to use right now?
I'll use charcoal in this case, but that way the camera can pick it up much easier because it's a richer darkness. And so I might do two quick little ones. One is I'll use letters to demonstrate how drawing and writing are really the same thing. They're really the same process. We just call them different names. But in all the drawing I do, I'm really using the same motions that I use in drawing. And so I'll draw a cafe scene. And so what we'll do is, let's imagine a coffee table. And if we have a coffee table, and I'm not going to go for all this exact drawing like you see over here in my drawing. A coffee table really looks like the letter T. Okay? And then usually we would have a chair next to it. And so the letter H is perfect for a chair. And usually we're drinking coffee. I don't really drink much coffee, but I'll drink tea. And on that table, then we will have the letter U for a nice cup. Mm-hmm. And if we want a handle, we can get really fancy and then put the letter P right there at the edge. And so everyone who can write can literally do this little scene. Right? And maybe on the far end over here of the wall of our imaginary French cafe, we have a window, which is literally the capital H, and we're just going to close it off over here. And so with this, we literally have a nice little simple cafe scene. We can put a backwards H for another chair, And this makes it very nice and simple. We can think of the body through letters or other of our surroundings through letters as well, something that's already familiar. It's just that we really don't think of it, This desk is kind of like the letter C, just, turned differently. Exactly,
Yeah.
Now, if we're going to think of a person sitting here, let's put it down here, a person. We can use a whole other technique because people say, oh my goodness, drawings can sometimes take too long. Not necessarily. We can just go and play with nice little ovals like this, and we can already see someone sitting right there. Here's his feet.
Oh, right.
Let's put his little chair right here. And then, because this is done this way, we can say, oh, there's his shoulder, here's his elbows, here's his hands. Backwards L for the laptop because he's playing video games. There's his hand. Now we just connect the dots. We can put the letter P right here for his hat. See the little P right here? Little backwards L for his nose.
That's fantastic.
And
that's
then
really
a long
good.
L that's sideways for his chin. There we go. And so here we have a nice little fella sitting down on his laptop.
Well, great. Well, actually, they're telling me we're out of time. I'm so sorry.
There we go.
I could sit here and watch you draw the whole time.
Yeah, it makes it
your
quite
show
fun.
opens at the Fresno Art Museum.
Correct.
It's going to run for 6 months.
For 6 months, yeah.
And you encourage people to get out there.
Absolutely. Tomorrow, the reception's from 6 to 8.
Great.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us, Marcos. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Greg Tabor of the new Theater Vaughn 2 production of King Lear. Thank Thank you so much. Welcome back to the Munro Review. Next up, we welcome Greg Tabor of the Theater Vaughn 2 production of King Lear, which opens February 2nd at the Fresno Soap Company. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
So you have been a longtime fixture on the Fresno theater scene. I know that you actually started Theater Vaughn 2 quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was about 2006, if memory serves, that we started out.
And you did a number of productions, then you kind of took a break.
We took a break. We kind of ran into tired a little bit. We had done a lot of stuff, and, you know, like all the rest of us, we have day jobs, so, you know, it's extra time and everything. So it was time to take a little break, and then it was time to come back.
And then you came back last year, or actually a few years ago.
Well, it's been a couple of years now. We've done several things over the last few years, yeah.
And last year you did a double header, I guess,
right, yes,
production of Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet, yeah.
And how did that work out? So you had 10 actors, you did one show one night.
Right, we had a Friday, Saturday, and so we did, you know, we opened with Romeo and Juliet, and then we did Hamlet, and then we did Romeo and Juliet, and then the next week we switched that, except that then we decided to throw in a wrinkle, and for the matinee we let the audience vote on which show they wanted to see.
That's right.
And it was a legitimate vote. And
I remember you telling me.
Yes.
What did they vote for?
They voted for Romeo and Juliet the first weekend and Hamlet the second one.
So you just had a matter of minutes.
Yeah, we gave the cast had about 15 minutes.
15 minutes of prep.
To figure out which show they were doing. I was surprised that I found 10 people who were crazy enough to do it, but they did, and I think it was pretty awesome.
That's great. That's great.
We had a great time, and they did a great job with it.
So King Lear, I guess I should say Your Majesty.
No,
you are
not at all. But
playing the title role. Yeah. Have you ever played Lear before? Or is this the first
no. This is the first.
And is it kind of on your bucket list? Is that one
sure?
Of the ones
Sure. There are things that you want to actually perform for people. I don't know about everybody else, but yeah, I've played about every part I've ever wanted to play in my head. And I don't know if other actors do that or not, but that's what I've done over the years. So it's neat to sometimes get to go out and actually do one for people. Yeah, Lear's fun. You know, because the hard thing about Lear is they always say that by the time you're old enough to play King Lear, you're too old to play King Lear. So I thought, well, I better get on with it, you know?
So you are just starring in this one. You're not directing it.
No.
Broderick Beard.
Broderick Beard is directing
it. What is his concept for the show?
We kind of worked that out together. I had a basic idea, and then he and I sat down and talked through it, and then he's taken it in some new directions from there. The basic thing we've tried to do, which is I think what we try to do with all the Shakespeare that we do, is find a way to make it immediate. And make it now. I mean, how do you deal with a play that's 400 years old and that is essentially about the disintegration of the cosmic order and how that plays out in the lives of royalty doesn't really have a lot to say in some ways. I mean, you can still do it and have it be wonderful, but I'm interested, and we're interested in making things significantly more personal, especially in a space like the Fresno Soap Co., where everything is this close. So what we've done with it is stripped it down and made it essentially about a family, happens to be the king and his family, who have to deal with the fact that this man is going mad. And it really is that simple. Mm-hmm. And what happens to them, and what do they do in response to that? So it becomes very much just about the madness. And it makes it really interesting.
So you have done a lot of your theater work outdoors, in a space in which you really have to
25 by 44.
Project to the world.
Yeah.
How is it different in this really small, intimate space? There's only about 50 seats, right?
Right, it's 50 seats. It's 15 by 19. And it's beautiful. I love it. Because a raised eyebrow carries, a whisper carries, a look carries, a shift carries. And it makes it so much more intimate. And what we found with Shakespeare, especially the Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet project that we did, is it can make things exceedingly powerful. And we know now that a lot of Shakespeare was done in the court theaters. It wasn't all just out the big stuff in the Globe. And so there's more new thinking that maybe a lot of it was written to be performed indoors in a smaller setting. And I can't think of a better way to do it. I really can't.
So do you ever wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, I'm playing King Lear. What was I thinking?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for about the last 3 weeks, I've been going, yeah, this was my idea. Okay, sure. Right. yeah, definitely.
Well, but I'm really glad to see that your company is thriving and doing challenging work. Tell us again, it opens February 2nd.
February 2nd, we run the 2nd and the 3rd at 7:30, the 9th and the 10th at 7:30, and then the 3rd and the 10th at 2 o'clock. First come, first serve, no late seating, and all tickets are pay what you will.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for coming by. For our final segment, let's take a look at the list. Here's a selection of things to do during the busy month of February. Among them, the Fresno Philharmonic celebrates the 100th anniversary of the birth of Leonard Bernstein with a February 25th concert titled Bernstein at 100. The featured guest artist is violinist Jennifer Coe, who will be featured in Bernstein's Serenade for Violin and Orchestra. You'll also get to hear a piece by contemporary composer John Adams and Aaron Copland's famed Symphony No. 3. Now, here's some local theater options for you. Reedley's River City Theater Company opens the Toe Tappin' musical review Swing on February 23rd. It features the music of Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Benny Goodman, and others. At Playhouse Merced, they open the popular Seussical on February 9th. And Tulari's Encore Theater Company opens the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee on February 2nd. At Arte Americas, it opens its new exhibition Kindred on February 1st. It includes work by Danny Green, who was hit by a drunk driver and suffered a major brain injury. The accident gave him a virtuosic ability to paint, and he can utilize any medium. And finally, don't forget about one of the biggest social events of the year, Trashique 2018, produced by the Fresno Art Museum. This installment of the well-known fashion show is so big that it's moved from the museum itself to, get this, an airplane hangar. Dozens of area artists are designing one-of-a-kind garments that will be worn by experienced models on the runway. Trashique is February 24th. Well, that wraps it up for this month's episode of the Munro Review. Be sure to keep up online at munroreview.com. Thank you to our volunteer crew. And thanks again to our guests, Marcos Dorado and Greg Tabor. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.